I want to today wrap us up by thinking a little bit about the things that we've studied, the philosophers we've looked at and read, the ideas that have filtered through our heads, and try to think about why this work that we've done matters. What are the ends of philosophy? And by ends here, I don't mean like the finality of philosophy, but the goals and the results and the places that we can go after doing a course in the introduction of philosophy. Let's just start with a an idea, a truth. Life is absurd. I mean, we can get depressed about this, right? We can think about the ridiculousness of our lives. Why do we have to blow our noses? Why do we go out and work and work and work just so that we can afford a TV? What is the point of getting up and voting another day, or getting up and living another day? What's the point of the things that we do? Life is absurd. We have to agree with Nagy here, right? When we don't come with a very set rule book, a guidebook for what we're doing, we have to discover our own reasons for what we do. And in this case, in thinking about the meaning of life, we can slide into absurdity so easily. I can look at my child, I can hold my wife, I can teach my students, and all of this feels meaningful. But at some point, I slow down and I think, what's the point? Now, Nagy has his answers, but let's start with a few things that we know about the absurdity of life. I know that life is real. How do I know that life is real? Well, we have two answers, one from Descartes. I know life is real because I think about it, and thinking makes me understand that I'm doing something real. And I know life is real with Ryle because I experience it. There's a physicality, undeniable proof that there's something real happening here. Another thing that we can establish is that I know that others are real. I can see you. I can see you looking at me, and I know that makes you real. You're not just some figment of my imagination. You are not just some avatar in a video game. You are real. And I know that I learn through others. Not only do I learn because you teach me, but I learn by watching you, and I learn by how you respond to me. I know that this action of seeing you as somebody real, seeing others as somebody real, and the fact that we learn from each other means that we're having something going on here. It still might be absurd, but it is real. We then can run into some problems because others can be irrational and untrustworthy. Clifford talks about the necessity of having some kind of value in the claims that you make and the beliefs that you do. And I spoke in one of our lectures about the irrational actions that I might take against a son or a child. Others can be irrational and untrustworthy, and that causes us to question the validity of these relationships that we have, which then might cast us back into the absurd. But what we have to come down to is the fact that others have rights and deserve respect. Dahl talks about the rights of citizens and democracy, and Rawls talks about the necessity of understanding what others need in this society in order to make it a just society. Others have rights and they deserve respect, no matter who they are. And because others have rights and deserve respect, I know that I have rights and I deserve respect. Douglas talks about the ways that he learned about his own freedom, and that was by being exposed to others' ideas. And Al-Qadi talks about the development of their identity through multiple forms of understanding others and their space in this world, and why that identity has value. So if I have rights and you have rights and I deserve respect and you deserve respect, well, our rights and our mutual respect build community. They build a sense of that we're here together in the midst of all this absurdity. We are here together and we are building something. Sorry, we are building something together in this community. Dua talks about this idea of coming together outside of the oppression of the power that surrounds us. And Noddings talks about the need to look out for others that as being an ethic, the need for care as being an ethic. And our community gives us meaning. It helps us build meaning together. You and I, working in the same space, can start to build a belief. Now, this doesn't mean I have to believe everything that you believe. It doesn't mean that I have to act in the same way that you act. It doesn't mean that we have to be unified and solitary, as the Flying Spaghetti Monster shows us. We can all come together and still have a community built on respect and rights. And Rousseau emphasizes this. This is the social contract, that we exist in this world together. And when we recognize our rights and our mutual respect for each other, we build a functioning society. One of the problems with this is that within that functioning society, you can get caught up in groups that start to ignore the rights and mutual respect of others. You can get caught up in ideas. You can get caught up in just the everyday grind of having to go to work and make money and drive to school and pay for car insurance. How absurd is car insurance? We get caught up in this community that sometimes loses sight of the reason why we came together in the first place. Or we get so swept up in a huge, gigantic community that we lose ourselves within it. How do we find purpose within community? Aristotle speaks of the individual rights that we have as a community, and Kant talks about as members of the community, and Kant talks about the necessity of understanding rules and expectations and ideas that exist before us within a community. Of course, sometimes that community is just absurd. There's a ridiculousness in life. And when we look at that ridiculousness that humanity can get into, how do we come to terms with that and find meaning there? When we have, in Douglas Adams, the meaning of life is the number 42, or within Diogenes, the meaning of life is just living your own path, we slide a bit into absurdity, and then we have to ask, what is the ultimate meaning? And I think for both Adams and Diogenes, the ultimate meaning is asking the questions. Now, how do we find purpose in community or in the face of absurdity? Well, some people might say you go and party. You just keep on dancing. Or some people might say you engage in meditation. You try to find a center. You try to find a quietness within that community where you can recenter yourself. Or some people might say you find meaning in politics with strong leadership that will lead you to the answers that you should have. You can look at Lee or Lamont or Hobbes for those answers. Or maybe we find meaning, we find community within the gods and the faiths that we have, within the churches that we go to, with the arguments of truths about deities that we engage in, or the trust that we have that there is something more there than just you and me. For me personally, each of those beliefs and acts are just shadows on the wall. They're things that we do to occupy our time as we, and they are, I think for me, a little dangerous at times because they can help us ignore the real community happening around us. For me, the only true meaning is you and I and how we create together. When we work together to make something meaningful happen, when we work together to create, that's the meaning of community for me. So, if that's the case, then the only true way to live this meaning of you and I working together is through service, through making sure that we're doing something more than just waking up and living through another day. To make sure that we're doing something more than just trying to earn another dollar, to pay another bill, to buy another thing. Make sure that we're doing something more than just trying to hook up and break up. We have meaning through the service that we provide for each other. The ways that we come together, as Representative John Lewis said, and find our responsibility in meeting the demands of our community and serving. And we find meaning through love for all, even for those absurd, cruel people, the ones with whom I disagree, the people that I would argue completely against because their ideas seem so skewed, their values seem so off of mine. I still have to love them, and loving them means service to them. This is why ultimately I'm a teacher, and ultimately for teaching me, for me, comes down to a philosophy. And I think ultimately it's why you learn. Now you may be you may disagree with many things I said here. That's absolutely fine. You may disagree with many of the ideas that you've encountered in class, and that's absolutely fine. But there is something fundamental about our lives where we have to overcome the absurdity of those lives in order to find meaning. And ultimately, that meaning is always found in each other. And if you can take that meaning that you find in others and expand it to recognize that all people are valuable, even those with whom you disagree, you will find true meaning in what it means to do philosophy. Because philosophy matters. Not everybody has to go through a class to learn names of philosophers or philosophical trends, but doing that helps us put our arguments in line and helps us be able to vocalize those arguments for others. When we can start to take what we know to be true or what we have found to be true through our thinking and our observations, and we can start to put that into words and try to persuade others to believe it, to accept it, to understand it, we are creating philosophy. And that philosophy, I ultimately believe, helps us live a better life. Our class is almost over. You have to turn in a paper, and you have to do another discussion board, turn in some notes this week, and you have to take an exam. The exam's not super hard, but you do need to be aware of the text that we've had. The paper shouldn't be super hard either, but you are trying to articulate your philosophical argument in that paper. As far as the exam go, let me give you 5% extra points. If you have watched this video until the end, put a comment on the video. Now you're going to have to make sure that I can see your name on that comment, so you could just use your last name to sign up for a YouTube account. Put a comment on the video, and then I will know that you've seen it, and I will give you 5 extra credit points on that exam. I have really enjoyed being your professor this semester, or your co-thinker, your co-writer, your co-studier. I've enjoyed being with you. Of course, I would have loved for us to have been in the classroom together so that we could see each other's faces and we could work even more closely together. But maybe we can do that in the future. If you see me walking on campus, stop me and say hi, introduce yourself. Or if you ever need something that you ever want to talk about your college career or where you're going with it, drop me an email and we can set up a meeting. And probably not over the next couple months because I'm going to go sleep for a couple months after this 7-week semester. But in the fall, come and talk to me. Thanks for being a great class. Thanks for being a great member of the class. I wish you the best of luck this summer and in your future college career. Philosophy matters.